So I guess we will bring Ross up. Ross is going to talk about what it means to be a green legislator and anything else that crosses his mind. I've never known Ross to be at a loss for words, especially big ones that we don't understand. So anyways, okay, I'm done ribbing you now, Ross. Come on up. Ross Mirkarimi.
Nice to see everybody. I'm Ross Mirkarimi, and I'm proud to be here with so many of my friends and allies and comrades. We essentially had started this party together, well over 17 years ago, and along that trail, quite a few people have enjoined to what has been, I think, a very bold and courageous effort here in the state of California as well as in the United States. Obviously, no minor effort, considering the extreme impediments and hurdles that are extremely disinviting to any third party who wants to sustain itself. We haven't seen, frankly, since the 1930s in this country where a third party had made and retained the kind of inroads that we also aspire to do, but yet we seem to defy those odds. And I'm proud of this party. I'm proud to be the representative on the Board of Supervisors here in the city and county of San Francisco. It feels a little lonely sometimes. And I look forward to more people fielding their candidacies and exacting the kind of strategies that are going to enter into, I think, elected office. I think since the 1980s, since the Democratic Party pretty much abdicated its position left of center when Reagan's politics had forced them to join the right. And it was a very measured response by the feminist movement, by the environmentalist movement, by the peace movement, by frankly all the other movements who felt orphaned and neglected, I think especially during the 1980s, to come together in a collaborative instinct and help form the Green Party, which is what we are today. And this is something more than ever as to why the calling of the necessity of this party couldn't be that much more bright. And especially as our state institution here, you are congregated here this weekend, Memorial Day weekend, right on the heels of when the spending bill on Iraq had literally failed to the degree that we had wanted it in terms of being able to defeat the advance by George Bush and frankly most of his allies in Congress on both sides of the aisle, that allowed us to be in the position that we are, I believe underscores the very need as to why the Green Party not only has to exist in the capacity that is right now, but quite frankly should be in the White House completely. Yeah. Now, Supervisor's going well, we're not going well. And even though, I don't know, party to the introduction of being the highest, I am a strong believer in the decriminalization of medical cannabis in Canada. I find it extremely strange that the federal government, you may have heard of the case here in the Bay Area, continues their persecution as well as prosecution of a man who's trying to attend to his wife, himself, and sick patients, a man made very famous now in the cannabis movement called, his name is Ed Rosenthal. And the fact that the federal government would be so determined really borders on what I would say, if not vexatious litigation, but malicious persecution. But it also speaks to the very need of that when we see Democrats take office and independent-minded people, at least in the way that they were marketed to be elected that way, then why is it that smart states like California and brave cities throughout the state of California who try to reconcile the new medical cannabis laws so that we make this product accessible, that we try to regulate this product, and yet why aren't our federal leaders then saying to us this should not be a Class II violation drug? Why they do not do that, I think, is very obvious, because in the very beginning they were not serious about the very rhetoric that I think that they were trying to portend. And that's why it's critical that on the municipal level, that we continue to field as many candidates as we possibly can to try to win the school board seats, to try to win the supervisor seats, to try to win the community college board seats, and build that case, that portfolio that explains to state and federal representatives the more you continue to make these illegal or misguided decisions, such as siphoning the kind of precious funds to kind of wars abroad like in Iraq, so that we are then ill-equipped to deal with the unmet needs here at home. This is why it's that much more of an onus on a local government like ours to stand up and say, forget it, we are going to cry foul. It is not out of the realm for a local board of supervisors or a city council to start putting forth resolution or legislation and saying that we don't want this to happen with Darfur. We want our corporations to divest from Darfur. We don't want this war in Iraq because we can't take care of the homeless here at home. We don't want this war in Iraq because we're scared of the geopolitical implications, the fact using our taxpayer monies in order to try to proliferate what is going to be a cataclysmic event in the Middle East anyway. We have to quit waiting for and tired to wait for our federal representatives to do the right thing, because it's been pretty obvious that they're not going to do the right thing. But what seems to be more of a strategy that works lately, I've noticed peppered throughout the state of California and throughout the United States, excuse me, is, I'll tell you in a second. By the way, what a typical Green Party event. I come to the table, there's one bottle of water for 150 people. Turn
it into wine!
And let me just I can't turn it into wine, but this damn thing should be recyclable. More legislation. And, you know, what that is the fact that we need to continue on this, I think, very aggressive course, unapologetically, as to saying that on a city government, on a county government, moving up the ladder, that it does not agree with us to the point where we would then proffer the threat that if people continue to vote the way they do, by rerouting those kind of limited dollars and resources away from us here, they need to feel the heavy hand of this party. They need to feel the heavy hand, and I think the strategic threat of those that we build like-minded alliances with. This party, believe it or not, despite, I think, some of the internal challenges that it has, I think, faced over the many, many years, is at a great precipice of doing things tactically that it just hasn't done before, because the scorecard is in. I don't believe that those who hold power right now are demonstrating the political will in order to make the changes that are necessary. And the drag is that even though we may have sharp elbows at times, our appetite is a little bit bigger than our ability. But yet, I do believe that our ability is very well couched in the understanding that we can insert ourselves, sharpen our elbows, and have a role at the table in municipal government and higher up, and continue to shape the agenda exactly as we should shape it. That plastic bag legislation that I wrote, let me tell you, it's not necessarily the legacy I was looking for so soon. I wrote that legislation in 1 hour and completely bewildered still by the worldwide attention that it garnered. I mean, worldwide attention. Everybody from Martha Stewart called me up, who interviewed me on a radio show. She's really into this idea. As well as the Sunday New York Times twice had an editorial very favorable of the legislation to the magazine, the UK magazine, The Economist, yes, which to me was my real badge of honor, that they gave a real, very positive editorial to Fuji TV from Japan, which is their equivalent of ABC, flew out a camera crew to interview me for their national news, to Namibia, to Iceland, to everywhere, just thinks that this is a great idea. And I'm thinking to myself, shit, I spent hours upon hours, writing legislation about police reform, about public safety, about affordable housing, about trying to build some new infrastructure that's inviting to, a renewable energy system versus a fossil fuel system. And it goes completely unnoticed, and then this one thing I spent an hour on gets this kind of attention. I guess I'm not clear on the concept yet. I had to really I must have missed that at their learning annex, School for Politicians to Be. So, but it's evident in the fact that even a local legislator, and it's heartening, can make an impact beyond the scale of its own borders and what we represent, and that we can continue to sort of advance the good thinking that is consistent with our party, which I don't believe is inconsistent with the Democrats or inconsistent with other independent-minded thinking people. It just needs the kind of leadership and the kind of focus and the determination in order to keep pushing our agenda so that it's felt, and felt through the vehicle of running candidates, felt through the vehicle of having massive voter registration, which I believe our party has somewhat shied away from, and at times used to be much more aggressive. Felt from the vehicle of doing the kind of fundraising that I think is critical for not just the short term, but the long view of the party's needs. That is what I think is something that will garner, I think, people's attention. I believe that we should be dispassionate when we're fact-finding, be able to get completely clear about when we want to make arguments, not by the low-hanging fruit, that simply why we should not be in Iraq or not be in the Middle East or in the Persian Gulf, but understanding the connection to local economics. The fact that even a city like San Francisco, where poverty is really, really felt, but yet because of our own chic image and cosmopolitan image, it belies what I believe is a progressive reputation for San Francisco. But yet that makes the responsibility twice as more for any of us to have to stand up and say, we do have poverty. We in this city has the fastest exodus of African Americans than any other city in the United States, next to New Orleans, and that was for not man-made reasons. It is critical that we continue to paint sort of that linkage so that we then are able then to present by facts through our candidacies or as legislator or just simply as the advocacy arm in order to help the local or regional effort that they are not impeachable. And this is why I believe that the Green Party then has great opportunity to sort of shine where others don't. When the Democrats are telling us that they're going to get us out of Iraq in within the last 2 days, they've proven to fail in that very, very mission. It is a strategy that I think that others will not carry for us. So with the, I think, presentation of what our case is as to why we want to be out of Iraq, why we want to prevent a war with Iran. And by the way, I carry an extra sort of moniker, not only being one of the highest elected Green Party members in the United States, I'm also one of the highest elected Iranian American electeds in the United States. And so I feel not just the kind of unitary duty, but sort of a double duty, and continue to make light of why I think it's that much more critical for not just progressives, populists, but I think common sense, well-reasoned people to not get into this kind of war. I find it very, very disheartening right now that with all the attention placed on the Middle East, and we know obviously it's not about WMD, it's about geopolitical sort of positioning about oil, that concurrently there is this not-so-secret campaign to now proliferate the return of nuclear energy in the United States, even here in California, but especially in the middle part of the country. Our movement here in the Green Party was built on the anti-nuke movement. Greenpeace was also helped built on the anti-nuke movement. So were some of the most other prominent environmental organizations. And I have yet to hear the kind of, I think, response, broad response, loud response to what I think is a very insidious type of campaign, coupled with the fact that if we are continuing to allow the Congress and the President to take us into wars abroad, illegal wars abroad, and allow for the proliferation of nuclear power at our own taxpayer subsidy, by the way, as it is that we are now paying or footing the bill for Diablo Canyon here from all over the state of California, then it's just incumbent upon us to be pushing for the kind of energy agenda that is not being pushed by others. There's 1,000 cities in the United States that are public power cities, where the municipal infrastructure themselves either own or have some kind of quasi-public-private ownership of their own utility infrastructure. We should be revving that machine up. and revving that machine up and calling for that kind of installation of a local government, and that is public power. Here in San Francisco, we're pursuing something called community choice aggregation. We're not going to be able to kick out PG&E, and God, I would love to, but we're not going to be able to kick them out, I think, right now. So the alternative is to get San Francisco into the energy business. Your cities could pursue, I think, something very similar if you don't already have a current structure that is municipally owned or some version thereof. Community choice aggregation has now birthed that opportunity. But again, what I'm trying to try to state here is this is our positioning. This is a menu. And this is something that I think needs to be a direct response to what is not working nationally and to what has now been indebted, based on our debt, to wars abroad internationally. And I feel very strongly about the need for the Green Party to be very in line about the kind of agenda that I think actually might make people feel very supportive, yet shudder on the face of it. And so this is what we do. And I think we need to see the opportunity for what it's worth. And that opportunity presents itself this next year and the next, I think, 4 years critically for this party. And I believe this party can survive, depends to what degree it will survive, meaning how impactful it wants to be. I'm serious. I want to reiterate this again about the voter registration. We have people who vote with us that are like-minded, but I want to feel that loyalty in the way that the Republicans are able to get loyal voters in their base, or the way that the Democrats, and others use FAIR and try to get voters to work within their particular base, or hope. But I believe that we need to be more of a, more vigorous in trying to get people to join, I think, with the party itself. There is nobody else. And as much as we would like to believe that there are others, they're not quite as poised, I think, as this party has become. This is a great party. There are people from all over the world that still email me now that I come into office that ask me about the possibilities of them starting a Green Party where they live, whether in the United States or abroad. And that is really sort of inspiring to me that there's that kind of direct interest. So I'll kind of end there. I'm getting a little warm. I'm really glad to see everybody here. It's a strange weekend in the sense that it's Memorial Day. For me, I take it very personally that this war goes on without, I think, any end. And I think that the response should have been as a result of Bush signing the bill that came before him, basically revolution to the streets. That should have occurred. And when it doesn't happen to that kind of response, then it's that sort of muted acceptance that worries me quite a bit. There are certain things that occur that need to feel, I think, that the level of civil disobedience action that is not necessarily as routine these days as it was, the last 20 or 30 years. Whether it's about war or, frankly, whether it's about poverty, because those dollars go to the same sources. Thank you.